All right, everybody, welcome to the video here for the Regents Review assignment number 6. The concept reviewing in this review is radical equations. So I separated this review into kind of two parts. So the first page is all multiple choice questions, and I want to show you how I would answer these as multiple choice problems. And then the second page is all free responses, so showing the actual algebra. So, for example, whenever we have a radical equation, the algebra involved will be isolating the radicals, squaring both sides, and solving it, right? You probably remember doing this in class by using the ISS rule, isolate, square, solve. But if it's multiple choice, we should really just graph this. So I'm going to separate this into two equations. We're going to say y equals the square root of 56 minus x. And we're going to say y equals x. And I want to see where these two graphs intersect. So going to Desmos, so if I go y equals, let me just get rid of this. So if we go y equals the square root of 56 minus x, and we go y equals x. If we look, there's only one intersection that's ever going to happen here, and it happens at the x value of 7. So the answer to this question is just 7. Now, if you were to solve this algebraically, you're actually going to get two answers. You're going to get 7 and -8, but then you have to remember to check your answer by graphing it. So because it's multiple choice, I'm just going to graph first. Number 2, the solution set for the equation is, now this one, if you had to solve this algebraically, would be a pretty nasty question. But because it's multiple choice, it's kind of nice. We could just graph it. So again, we have y equals the square root of x plus 14 minus the square root of 2x plus 5, and y equals 1. So if we go back to Desmos, we can make our two equations. Y equals the square root of x plus 14 make sure you get out of the radical to put the second one, which I didn't. So we have minus 2x plus 5. And we have y equals 1. Just double check. 2x plus 5, 14, and 1. I think there's a typo here. Oh, it's 14. Duh. There we go. So we have one answer, and the answer happens at 2. Now, the reason why I was kind of having a brain fart there was I was not seeing an intersection, and all 4 choices show that there's at least one intersection. So I just found my mistake, so that's good to see. All right, let's see. Next one. So if we make y equals square root of x plus 1 minus 1, and y equals x, see where those intersect. Again, go to Desmos. This should be easy peasy as long as we actually type it in right. So we have y equals, we have a square root. And we have x plus 1 minus 1. So make sure the x plus 1 is in the radical. Get out of the radical to do the minus 1. And we have y equals x as the other side. Remember, the home button always brings you back to the normal. You'll see 2 gray points. So those are the 2 intersections. Both happen at the x values of 0 and -1. So we have 0 and -1 are my answers. If a radical equation is multiple choice, that's how I want you to do it. I don't want you to do a bunch of algebra and math and make mistakes. But they can be free response. And I will tell you on your weekly quiz, it's going to be free response. I want to see if you could do the algebra and then just check your answer on the calculator. So to do the algebra, we have to do ISS. Remember, isolate, square, solve. So to isolate this square root, I'm going to have to move the x to the other side. So I have the square root of 2x minus 7 is equal to 5 minus x. I then need to square both sides. So I square this side and I square this side. When you square a square root, it kind of eliminates itself. They're opposite operations. So we're left with this equation. Now we should be able to solve this equation, right? I can make some boxes to multiply out 5 minus x and 5 minus x. So we'd get 25 minus 5x minus 5x and x squared. So we have 2x minus 7 is equal to x squared minus 10x plus 25. We then can subtract 2x and add 7 because when we have a quadratic, which I know because it's x squared, I want that quadratic to be equal to 0. To solve this, I have to factor it. So I have to figure out what multiplies to make 32, but adds to make negative 12. And those two numbers would be negative 8 and negative 4. So I'd have x minus 8 and x minus 4. Each one of those factors then can be set equal to 0. And we get x equals positive 8 as a possible answer and x equals 4 as a possible answer. However, one of these might be extraneous or might get rejected. So to check this, I'm going to go back to Desmos. So I have to do some graphing again. So we'll say y equals, and it's the square root of 2x minus 7. Get out of the radical, put in our plus x, and we have y equals plus 5 plus x. And we have y equals 5 as the other equation. You will see these only intersect one time at positive 4. So the x value of 4 is the answer. 8 is extraneous. Number 5 is also a radical equation, but it's mixed into as a word problem, right? So it says a speed of a tidal wave s in hundreds of miles per hour can be modeled by the equation. It gives us the equation where t represents time and algebraically determine the time when s is 0. This is telling you to plug in 0 for s. So here's your equation you're trying to solve. So we need to isolate the square root of t before I can solve square both sides. So I'm going to add 2t to both sides, and I'm going to subtract 6 to both sides. That's going to give me, and I'll reorder this, so 2t minus 6 equals the square root of t. Just like above, I can square both sides. Well, if I do that, I'm going to get 2t minus 6 squared equals t, because remember, the square root of something squared is going to just be that number underneath. It's opposite operations. So again, somewhere off to the side, let's multiply that out. So we have 2t minus 6 and 2t minus 6. So we have 4t squared, we have minus 12t, we have minus 12t, and we have positive 36. So this is all going to come out to be 4t squared minus 24t, right? Negative 12t and negative 12t makes negative 24, plus 36 equals positive t. And again, I see something quadratic, so I have to make this equal to 0. So I'll move the t to the other side. So we have 4t squared minus 25t plus 36 equals 0. And again, we have to factor this. And we're going to use our good friend, the AC method. 36 times 4, if we do that in our calculator, let's do 36 times 4, we get 144. So we're trying to figure out what multiplies to make 144, but what adds to make negative 25. Well, the two numbers that make that work are what? So let's see. So if we take 144 and we divide it by 2, we get 72. Does 2 and 72 add up to make 25? No. So we'll divide it by a different number. And we're just going to have to keep going through this process until we find something that works. So we could divide it by 3. 3 and 48 don't work. We could divide it by 4. 36, that doesn't work. We could divide by 6. That doesn't work. That's going to add up to make 30. We could divide it by 9. That works. 9 and 16 add to make 25. So we're going to use -9 and -25. Now, how the AC method works is we're breaking apart the 25 using those two numbers. The first term stays the same, minus 9t minus 25t plus 36. It doesn't matter which number you put first. And then we're going to do grouping. So we're going to say the common factor of these first two terms is t, which will leave us with 4t minus 9. The common factor of these two terms is going to be no, 25 doesn't work. 9 doesn't work. Oh, it's 16. There we go. I don't know why I put 25 here. It's 16. There we go. All right, so the common factor of these two terms is going to be 4. And I'm going to take out a -4 to make this 4t minus 9. Meaning our two factors are 4t minus 9 and t minus 4. Giving us two possible answers of t equals 4 and t equals 9 over 4. Now again, I have to check this. So I'm going to plug this into my calculator. So we're going to say y equals 0, right, because s is 0 in this case. And we're going to say y equals the square root of x. I'm just going to use x instead of t. It's easier. And then we'll say minus 2x plus 6. Minus 2x plus 6. And we see they only intersect at 4. So 4 is the answer. 9/4 gets rejected. It's extraneous. The second part of the question says, how much faster was a tidal wave traveling after 1 hour and 3 hours to the nearest mile per hour? So this is asking us to plug in a time of 1 and a time of 3 and just subtract two numbers. So to answer that second part, I would have to say, well, what is s when t is 1? So we can say s when t is 1 minus 2 plus 6. So that's going to be 7. And what is s when t is 3? So I can plug in the square root of 3 minus 2 times 3 plus 6. And that's going to be a decimal. That won't be so easy to find. So let's type that into our calculator. So we have the square root of 3 minus 2 times 3 plus 6. And we get 1.732. Now it says how much faster in miles per hour. Well, in this problem, it says that s is in terms of hundreds of miles per hour. So for this first value, this is actually 700 miles per hour. 7 times 100, 700. Minus, if I take that number that we just got, this 1.732 number, and I multiply that by 100, I get 173 miles per hour. So if I subtract 700 minus 173, I'm just rounding everything to the nearest whole number because that's what it asks me to do. I can see it happens 527 more miles per hour. That's the answer to the second part. The last question is another just solve algebraically problem. So we have to isolate first. So we subtract x. We get the square root of x minus 4 is equal to 6 minus x. You might somewhat recognize this problem because guess what? It was on the midterm. So if we square both sides here, we get x minus 4 is equal to 6 minus x squared. Again, make some boxes. So we have 6 minus x and 6 minus x. We have 36, negative 6x, negative 6x, and x squared. So we have x minus 4 is equal to x, that's an equal to sign, let's see, equal to minus 12x plus 36. Again, it's quadratic. So I have to subtract x and add 4. So we have 0 is equal to x squared minus 13x plus 40. And we're trying to figure out numbers that multiply to make 40 and add to make negative 13, which should be 8 and 5. So minus 8 and minus 5, meaning our two answers here are x equals 8 and x equals 5. But again, I have to check this. So the easiest way to check it, again, for the 6th time now, is in Desmos. So if we check this, we make y equals square root of x minus 4 plus x. So we'll make sure you're in the bracket there. X minus 4 plus x. And we have y equals 6. And we can see they only intersect one time at 5. So that means 8 gets rejected and 5 is your answer. Hopefully this video helped. Make sure you're reviewing this stuff. Try them on your own, please. Make sure you're not just watching my video. And best of luck studying.